do you think the Muslim Brotherhood is, what their agenda is? And then, as a member of Congress, what would you have done when you saw one walking through the door of the White House? Good question.
Yeah, I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood is a very powerful Islamist organization that has roots across the Middle East and North Africa, and has had for many, many years.
Here, I want to know what you would do with them here.
Yeah, okay, I mean, I'm just trying to give the context of that.
That's fine.
So again, just like just like other organizations like the Iranian Quds Force that have international presence in other places, the Muslim Brotherhood has presence and are impacting our national interests in the Middle East, and they have presence also in the United States and other places, okay? We live in a free country. If people don't violate any laws, we certainly have our First Amendment freedoms, but we need to make sure that we're not having people that are prone to extremist ideology or terrorism that are part of our community. So I will leave that certainly to law enforcement to make sure that we are protecting people's privacies, but we're also making sure that we are paying attention to protect people from any sort of extremism and terrorist attack here on our own soil. There is a strong focus, though, on what power they really have overseas right now, and we're seeing their rise in Egypt, and we're seeing their rise in other places. In addition to the Salafists, this is very serious business. Our national interest of protecting our close ally Israel is at stake. The Egypt-Israel peace treaty is at stake. There's nothing that's given that we should say is for sure secure for the future of our national interest in the Middle East because of the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood. So we need somebody who understands them, and we need somebody who's able to focus our foreign policy and our national interests in order to defend from those threats, both overseas and at home.
So when you saw them going through the White House, what would you have done as a member of Congress?
Well, as a member of Congress, I'm going to be focusing on my role in defending the people of America as a representative youth. So, I mean, we need to all go to the ballot box and make sure we're choosing the right presidential, Senate, and House of Representatives. So I'll be focusing on what my responsibilities are to represent you in Congress.
You know, as a candidate, I've also received letters from folks asking a similar question, what would we do here? And I've heard several speakers talk about how our Constitution is not really prepared for the kind of onslaught that some of these groups could bring because of exactly what Martha's indicated. We do have our First Amendment rights. We do have the freedoms that we enjoy, and we want to make sure we continue to enjoy those. But we do need to take seriously the threats, domestic and foreign, as I know Martha's taken a sworn oath to defend against. As far as coming into the White House, I would ask for a serious sit-down with the President to say, let's make sure that we are all on the same page, that we are sending the message of freedom and not a message of anything other than that. So as a member of Congress, that's what I would have been doing when I saw them coming through the door. Thank you.
Of course, if things are going the way they are, and we get Romney in, we might not have to worry about that again, right?
You would think.
Go ahead, sir.
I've got a question about the budget. The federal government takes in about $2.3 trillion. They spend $3.4 trillion. Military, $700 billion. Medicare, $700 billion. And Social Security, $700 billion. Those three items, which really are pretty much off the table to balance the budget, because they're mandated, except for military, because they're mandated by law. Total up, the exact amount of revenue, give or take a couple $100 billion of the federal government. The federal government spends $3.4 trillion. So if you take Social Security, Medicare, and the military off the table, the only way you could balance the budget is if you eliminated every other part of government, every part of government. Explain to me and to the constituents here how you're going to balance the budget without touching those three items.
Want me to go first?
Yeah. 2 minutes.
Two minutes, solve the budget problem. Okay. The short answer is it isn't going to happen tomorrow. In fact, it's probably not going to happen in the 2 years that either of us get to serve. But as I've said before, and I think you and I had this discussion a few weeks back, actually, there are a couple of proposals on the table. Now, everybody's probably heard about Paul Ryan's budget, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, it doesn't squeeze fast enough, hard enough, and there's some concern about what it does potentially to social programs. I've been a fan of the Simpson-Bowles approach because it takes a serious look at this issue, and it starts to address the debt sooner, 5 years sooner. Now, I think Representative Schweikert, north of here, has done some numbers to say, well, if we hold everything the same and things pick up, that's a big if, right? Then we should be getting closer to balancing things in about 5 years' time. I want to look at some of his assumptions to get there. But right now, it's the key thing is for us to actually start addressing it. Pick some of these programs and get them moving, because right now, it's not happening. So while we won't solve the problem...
What programs, though? What would you
Okay.
be willing to tell?
The three, everybody talks about the 3 E's, right?
Social Security, you would be willing to cut Medicare, and you would be willing to cut the military, because that's almost 2/3 of the budget.
Well, I think
How
as
do you
was
get
pointed
there?
out, we need to make sure that the military is not budget-driven military, but strategy-driven military.
So you
we
won't
know
cut
what's
the
going on.
military?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Because what happens
will
is,
cut
if you
the
look at, we will do whatever's necessary by the military, what they say they need. Okay, we need to look seriously and evaluate what are the real threats. So, for example, the Paul Ryan budget, where it concerns the military, okay, he actually put more money in to the military spending than the military asked for. Okay, so starting there, we would go from his and say, no, let's go back to what the military asked for. Okay, and start bringing that. That's one way to bring his budget back into line with what we need to do. Okay, in terms of the social programs, okay, we need to keep the promises that have been made to the people who are currently in the program, because they planned around that. Okay, but we do need to take a serious look.
Social Security can't be cut.
Social Security for current recipients is likely to remain where it is.
Right.
Okay?
So
We need to
that
look
won't
at
be
the
cut.
future. What do you mean? What's that?
It won't be cut. It's going to be $700 billion next year. It's going to be $700 billion the next year. You're not going to touch it. So that means that part of the budget's going to remain at $700 billion, right?
It will remain close to that, yes.
Okay, and there's 40 million on retirement right now, and when the baby boomers fully hit, there's going to be 80 million. Okay, so it's going to have to go to 1 trillion to 1.2 trillion. Okay, so you're saying that people my age, 55 years old, are going to be able to continue to collect, and you're not going to do anything to enhance revenues.
There are ways that's being addressed in Simpson Bowles. Okay, so there are some things in there that will take
So you're a
that
supporter
down.
of Simpson Bowles?
Yes, I am.
Excuse me, sir.
Next
Yeah,
Excuse me.
we need to get to the other candidate.
Let me just say this. You've had your chance to ask probably 5 separate questions, all excellently put forth. However, we are going to have Martha give you a 2-minute explanation, and I would ask you not to interrupt this time. Thank you.
Thank you. You've adequately pointed out that we continue to spend more than we take in. If any of us did that as a household, or if if anybody's kids... Excuse me?
A little louder, please.
Sure, sorry, I thought I'd speak loud. Certainly if any of your kids actually continue to spend outside their means, then you probably would sit them down and give them a talking to make sure that they're showing some discipline. So we do need to show some fiscal discipline. What wasn't addressed in the answer to the last question is growth. Okay, we have revenue is down because the economy is down. And so we need to grow the economy, and we need to get that growth curve going in the right directions. We need to simplify the tax code and keep taxes low. We need to simplify the regulatory scheme so that we actually flourish again and we get our economy going again, which then grows our GDP. And when the GDP grows, then more revenue goes to the government. So we need to, our primary way to solve the economic challenge and the way the cost curves are going right now is through pro-growth, pro-business, pro-small business, pro-free market policies and laws that are coming out of the federal government. So that needs to be our focus. At the same time, we do need to show some fiscal discipline. We just continue to overspend. We continue to have that cost curve without any bend in it, and we have to show that fiscal discipline. And we got to look at the whole pie chart there, obviously. The military, I've been in the military. We've doubled military spending since 2001, appropriately, because we've been in 2 wars. We need to right-size our military for the strategy for the threats that we have ahead of us. I'm not telling you what that number is. I'd like to see a strategy actually out of the Department of Defense, and then we should have a budget that follows that strategy in order to defend America. In the non-defense programs, we need to look at every single department and every single program, and if the federal government isn't responsible to do it, then we need to give it back to the states or give it back to the private market. And if they are responsible to do it, then we need to make sure that there's no waste, there's no fraud, there's no abuse, and it is right-sized for what that department is. And we need to make sure we protect and secure Social Security and Medicare for our current seniors and for future generations. If we do nothing right now, they will both go bankrupt. So we need to protect and secure both of those, not stick our head in the sand, and grow our way out of this thing where we're making those right choices in order to show fiscal discipline.